8. Antichrists and false prophets. Remember, we are dealing with his story, but we can get a lot of clues in the book of Acts of the Apostles and Revelation. Now that we know about the reset in 1800 AD, it is quite probable that for the most part, Revelation has been fulfilled. Rome represented the beast. Revelation prophecy started from the ascension of Jesus, which would make sense as he was the one to break the 7 seals and therefore had to go to heaven for this reason. Prophecy fulfilled. It was the catalyst for events to follow. Many resets have happened, and many Antichrist figures have been suggested. From Nimrod to Alexander the Great. If they were just false prophets, or reincarnations of the Antichrist, this is a debate on its own. We are focusing on the Revelation prophecy referring to the rapture and tribulations, so we will focus on Nero Caesar. Remember to do your own research. History does not nearly reflect how truly evil he was or the major events that surrounded his reign. Nero's death also seems to be a mystery. Nero's backstory. Family life. We must note that his first name was actually Lucius, which means light. Nero was born in 37 AD, the son of Gnaeus and Agrippina, a great-granddaughter of the Emperor Augustus. When Nero was 2, his father died. Nero's mother married Claudius in 49 AD, becoming his 4th wife. She persuaded Claudius to adopt her son Nero. Agrippina was suspected of poisoning her first 2 husbands and Emperor Claudius, and slept her way up, so that Nero would become Caesar. It was also suggested that Nero slept with his mother. Nero orchestrated her death in 59 AD when she interfered in his rule. He also killed many relatives, including his step-brother, in 55 AD. He divorced his first wife, who also happened to be his stepsister, Claudia Octavia, for being barren, and married a new wife, Poppaea Sabina, 12 days later. He later ordered the killing of Claudia as she was loved too much by the Roman people. Poppaea did not last very long either. After a fierce argument over how much time Nero was spending at the races, the intemperate emperor violently kicked Poppaea in the abdomen whilst she was pregnant with his second child. She died as a result in 65 AD. Their first child died at 4 months. He then castrated his former slave boy Sporos, dressed him up as a woman, and took him as his 3rd wife. Nero's rule. At the age of 16, he ruled over an extremely large and powerful empire. Nero Caesar ruled from 54 AD to 68 AD, approximately 13 years. He also served as Pharaoh of Egypt. Nero adopted the royal title, Emperor Nero, ruler of rulers, chosen by Ptah, beloved of Isis, the sturdy-armed one who struck the foreign lands, victorious for Egypt, ruler of rulers, chosen of none who loves him. At the start of his reign, Nero was loved by the common man as he related with them rather than the educated patrician classes. He ordered the construction of amphitheaters, and promoted athletic games and contests. He made public appearances as an actor, poet, musician, and charioteer, which scandalized his aristocratic contemporaries as these occupations were usually the domain of slaves, public entertainers, and infamous persons. He brought down taxes for the poor in Rome, reduced the price of food. In return, he taxed the elite to fund his projects. As a competitor in the Olympic Games, Nero raced a 10-horse chariot and nearly died after being thrown from it. He also competed as an actor and singer. Although he faltered in the competitions, being the emperor, he won nevertheless, and then he paraded in Rome the crowns he had won. Nero built a palace, the Golden House. Nero certainly took advantage of the devastation of the city, building a lavish private palace on part of the site of the fire. It was to be known as the Domus Aurea or Golden Palace, and was said, at the entranceway, to have included a 120-foot-long, 37 meters, column that contained a statue of him. His death was rumored as suicide. It was the end of the royal bloodline and sparked a brief period of civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors. In the eastern provinces of the empire, a popular legend arose that Nero had not died and would return. After his death, at least 3 leaders of short-lived, failed rebellions presented themselves as Nero reborn to gain popular support. Tribulations, signs and revelation, all the signs were present in his reign. Natural disasters, strange diseases, wars, rumors of wars, false prophets who will perform miracles, false Christs who would deceive many, distress of nations, brother rising against brother, famine, kingdom rising against kingdom. If we look at the first seals, we can clearly see how it fits into place. First seal, white horse. Antichrist conquest start, and the rise of power for Nero and preparation for his reign. Second seal, red horse. Wartime. We can look at the Panthea War 58 AD to 63 AD and Budokan War 59 AD, most importantly the First Jewish and Roman War 66 AD to 70 AD. Destruction of Second Temple. Third seal, black horse. Famine, fire and poverty. After Rome fire 64 AD, Nero demanded heavy tributes from kingdoms and currency devaluation. Balance refers to getting less food for your money. Weighed on a scale. A measure of wheat for a penny was same as daily wages. Fourth seal, pale horse. Death and fear, large-scale persecution of Christians. Pestilence and plagues brought on by unsanitary conditions after great fire and famine. Fifth seal, martyrs. Disciples martyred around the world, especially by Nero, Peter and Paul, waiting for Armageddon to be resurrected in celestial bodies. Sixth seal, great earthquake. Laodicea, Colossus and Hierapolis in 61 AD. Vesuvius eruption near Pompeii caused earthquakes. Earthquakes were relatively common. Death of 1/4 of the world's population is quite possible if we combine the numerous deaths of natural disasters, 3 worldwide earthquakes, plagues, famine, and persecution of Christians around the world. Slaughter of Jerusalem, around 1.6 million women and children. On February 5, 62 AD, an earthquake of an estimated magnitude of between 5 and 6 and a maximum intensity of 9 or X on the Mercalli scale struck the towns of Pompeii and Herculaneum, severely damaging them. The earthquake may have been a precursor to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. Important to note that Pompeii was regarded as the Sodom and Gomorrah of Rome. This apocalyptic event was described by Dio Cassius. The whole plain round about Vesuvius seethed and the summits leaped into the air. There were frequent rumblings, some of them subterranean, that resembled thunder, and some on the surface, that sounded like bellowings. The sea also joined in the roar and the sky re-echoed it. Then suddenly a portentous crash was heard, as if the mountains were tumbling in ruins, and first huge stones were hurled aloft, rising as high as the very summits. Then came a great quantity of fire and endless smoke, so that the whole atmosphere was obscured and the sun was entirely hidden, as if eclipsed. Thus day was turned into night and light into darkness. Some believed that the whole universe was being resolved into chaos or fire. While this was going on, an inconceivable quantity of ashes was blown out, which covered both sea and land and filled all the air. It buried 2 entire cities, Herculaneum and Pompeii. Indeed, the amount of dust, taken all together, was so great that some of it reached Africa and Syria and Egypt, and it also reached Rome, filling the air overhead and darkening the sun. There, too, no little fear was occasioned, that lasted for several days, since the people did not know and could not imagine what had happened, but like those close at hand, believed that the whole world was being turned upside down, that the sun was disappearing into the earth and that the earth was being lifted to thee. It does seem if these events were recorded, and that John the Evangelist wrote Revelations and died in 98 AD. It is also unclear if John the Baptist was killed and resurrected as Elijah, which would explain the witness prophecy. I will leave it to the scholars as this is not my forte. Supporting reasons for believing Nero was an Antichrist. Isaiah prophesies the end of the world, when the liar, the Antichrist, will manifest himself as the incarnation of the dead Nero. And after the world has been brought to completion, the liar will descend, the great angel, the king of this world, which he has ruled ever since it existed. He will descend from his firmament in the form of a man, a king of iniquity, a murderer of his mother. This is the king of the world, and will persecute the plant which the 12 apostles of the Beloved will have planted. Some of the 12 will be given into his hand. This angel, Beliar, will come in the form of that king, and with him will come all the powers of this world, and they will obey him in every wish, and he will do everything he wishes in the world. He will act and speak like the Beloved, and will say, I am the Lord, and before me there was no one. And all men in the world will believe in him. The people who live on the earth will be amazed when they see the beast, because it was once alive, is no longer living, but will come again. Nero's attitude to religion and cults was open. In line with ancient Roman culture, he was a polytheist, aligning himself with the god Apollo. He admired Greek and exotic Eastern culture, which inspired him to become a self-proclaimed living divinity. Built a 37-meter statue, Colossus of Nero from brass, to be worshipped. He hated Christians for not worshipping him. Turned the world against Christians. Peace symbol, also known as the Cross of Nero. Many people are not aware of the origins of this symbol, or how it became to symbolize peace. This is the Cross of Nero, a broken and inverted cross, enclosed in a circle which represents Nero's vision. Nero believed that there would be world peace without Christianity. Millions of Christians were martyred under the rule of Nero. This is what the peace symbol represents, regardless of what it means to you. Just like Nero, Antichrist will claim to be a god and come from the kingdom on the 7 hills. Rome. Nero's 13-year reign. Nero Caesar in gematria is 666. Soldiers had tattoos on their hand to mark their regiment, mark of the beast, also called stigma. Slaves forced to have a branding on forehead, the mark of the beast. You had a choice to take the mark and become a slave or be put to death. He started Jewish-Roman war in 66 AD, and Jerusalem temple was destroyed in 70 AD. Blamed Christians and their God for the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. For 7 days it burned, destroying Zeus' temple and altars and a third of Rome. It then burned another 3 days. Blamed Christian God for the Rome fire and persecuted Christians for 3.5 years. Burned them as lamps, tortured in his circus. Tacitus described it as mockery of every sort was added to their deaths. Covered with the skins of beasts, they were torn by dogs and perished, or were nailed to crosses, or were doomed to the flames and burnt, to serve as nightly illumination when daylight had expired. He crucified Peter upside down on Vatican Hill on his 10-year anniversary at Circus Maximus. Supposed origin of St. Peter's Basilica. Paul was decapitated. They started the first Roman church. In Jerusalem, there seems to have been awakening with many Jews converting to Christianity. James was the head of the church Peter started, and Mark continued after James' death. The Vatican is currently the devil's church. Will be explained soon. False prophet, Simon Magus. Simon Magus, also known as Simon the Sorcerer or Simon the Magician, was a religious figure whose confrontation with Peter is recorded in Acts. Not only did he try to buy the apostle's ability to heal, but according to legend, on challenging the apostle before the Emperor Nero, Simon fell to his destruction from atop the Roman Forum to demonstrate his occult ability to fly. It seems as if 2 evil spirits lifted him into the air, but Peter banished the demons, which made them drop Simon to his death. Return of the Antichrist, Nero. I receive constant dreams of hourglasses and time portals, and even a looking glass. Not crazy about the fact that Cronus is regarded as the god of time and that US government has a project called Looking Glass. Also a Large Hadron Collider, called CERN, that we will discuss in part 10. It could merely be that God looks down on Earth from above and uses Earth as his calendar and clock. Or there might be more to the story. Only time will tell. Revelation 9 verse 11. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek is Apollyon the Destroyer. Well, now you know why 9/11 was such an important date. Now the buildings are called the One World Trade Center. Can you figure out who was behind 9/11? This might be speculation, but based on my research I will call it informed speculation. And remember, there could be many antichrists and false prophets throughout history. If Nero had to come back, he would be 30 years old. Could be through resurrection, time travel, or a portal. If the Antichrist or false prophet had to return in some way today, here are some thoughts on who it might be. Firstly, his career or teachings would start out at around 30 years of age. Same as Nero when he died. He will probably write a book, be on TV shows and movies. Very prominent on the news and will always look for attention and adoration. All press is good press. Will be extremely rich, but will pretend to be richer than he really is. Superego and own self-worth. Will build a ball tower to live in. Probably stay on the 66th floor. He will worship Apollo and might even paint him on his ceiling. Will have art of pagan gods. Will be a womanizer and of low moral integrity. He will win over large groups of people and pretend that he is just like them. The educated elite will despise him. He will pretend to be the solution to peace on earth, and will have good relations with dictators. World leaders will fear him. Will take credit for peace deals, especially in Middle East. Will support Israel. Please note this is not the same place or people as in the Bible. Finally, he will start comparing himself to God, or we will hear he was chosen by God. He will do everything to be worshipped like an idol. Could even portray himself as a superhuman. And yes, people will follow him, idolize him, and even fight and die for him. Many false prophets will tell you to follow this man as he is the Savior. He will have the bloodline of kings and descend from fallen angels. There are a few more power players we can mention like royalty, but one in particular, as I had a dream about Aramax which led Met to Emirati and thus the Crown Prince of United Arab Emirates. Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the president and next ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Also keep an eye on Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, already the Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. Just like World Economic Forum, they also seem to have a 2030 project called NEOM, worth researching. Whatever you do, do not follow any man, as only the Son of God can save you.